Music of the Year 2001. And here we are with probably the most important genre I'll be covering for this series, hip-hop. Now, if people thought that hip-hop was a fad in the late 70s, by the time we reached the 80s, we started to see exactly how hard it was to kill off. And through the 90s, we would see it continue to evolve and grow. Into the late 90s, we would definitely see things start to change with the development of certain technologies and software. A lot of people were starting to get sick and tired of the scratch the DJ turntable, and they wanted to see some evolution. And a lot of artists pulled off that evolution swimmingly. The big changer in the late 90s was Outkast, with their ability to write these hyper rhythms that were mostly written in software. Synthesizers also allowed some ease, as well as some electronic DJs showing exactly what could be done with the right software. So by the time 2001 rolled around, we got even more game changers, including the very first appearance of one particular producer, whom I'm going to not spoil for you because you'll see who I'm talking about in just a few minutes. 2001 is the starting point of when we would see hip-hop take even more of a rise into the mainstream and a big change in a lot of the fads of the coming decades. So let's take a look at the albums that helped contribute to that. Labor Days, Aesop Rock. Alright, let's get the white boy out of the way. Man, all this guy wanted to do was pick apart the day and put the pieces back together his way, damn it. The opening melancholic chord progression of Daylight and the swaying live guitars show you exactly how much of a treat you're into when you start listening to this thing. But it's not just the beat that draws you in, it is the sarcastic, humorous antics of one Mr. Aesop that helps carry this album all the way through. Just in this one opening track, there's so many layered lyrics that even a single verse can take you a few minutes to completely decipher and figure out. When he drops a comparison to how you treat life to how the typical man treats a woman, you know you're dealing with someone who knows how to layer their metaphors. This is a very tightly woven concept album about the 9-to-5 grind that makes us all want to kill ourselves deep inside. If there is a hip-hop album that can make a leftist out of you, this is definitely it. My favorite track off of here is called No Regrets, which tells the tale of a woman that depends mostly off of her chalk drawings and her own hermit lifestyle in order to bring her happiness, not depending on the hopeless outside world which will only bring you sadness. Living an unconventional lifestyle in order to find your purpose and calling. There is another great moment on here, I forget which track it is, but the music completely cuts out, and Aesop just starts rapping about the broken capitalistic system and how it needs to be replaced, and god damn it, is it just fucking awesome. Now, I do have some mild complaints on here that keeps this from being in classic territory, although I'm sure some people will disagree with me. First off, this is one of those albums that has a lot of the issues that hold back several hip-hop albums from this era, and that's that it's over an hour long, and sometimes you're left checking your watch just being all like, is it over yet? Not because it's bad, but just because even the best music, sometimes you just need a break. I mean, some of these songs, like the literal last minute, is just the beat repeating itself, and like, you couldn't just chop that off and let the song finish? Not that it holds it back that much. The length is a little bloated, and some of the moments are a little bit less than others, which keeps it from having the consistency of an S tier, but I will give this thing a pretty steady A-. Do give it a stamp of approval and give it a shot. The Cold Vein, Cannibal Ox. Oh boy, is it time to rustle some jimmies with this one. This album is seen as the 2000s equivalent of 36 Chambers by Wu-Tang Clan. The two people rapping about the gangster life, making references to pop culture. And while Vordel, Mega, and Vastair do paint a bleak picture of poverty in New York City, and a lot of the lyrics on here are fantastic, stylistically speaking, this thing isn't anything to write home about. At least in my point of view. I don't see it as anything all too different. I do think that the production on here done by LP is ahead of its time, but just because the production's ahead of its time doesn't necessarily mean that the songwriting and the style is as well. But okay, that's all fine and good. What's keeping me from even putting this album in the A tier? Well, first off, we have those flaws, but then we also have to talk about the F word. And no, I'm not talking about the slur, I'm not talking about fuck, I'm talking about the song called The F Word. What do you think the F word is? It's friend. This is a song about the friend zone. Oh goody. Look, I get it, misogyny exists in music, and to pick it apart and bitch about it is stupid, but sometimes certain things, certain ideas just rub you in such a bad way that you just are like, no, I'm not making an exception for that one. I mean, they try to put on this tough guy gangster mentality for the entirety of the album, and then this song comes around and just completely steamrolls over that image because it just sounds like whining and bitching. Look, if you or someone you love has been turned into a friend by a woman, be thankful that you have a friend and maybe try to process your emotions in a more healthy way. I suggest therapy, I suggest picking up some hobbies, I suggest maybe trying to seek romance elsewhere instead of trying to obsess over the same person. Trust me, as somebody who used to struggle with this, do something about it. It will end up biting you in the ass. Other than that, and me harping on one particular song, I just don't see how this thing is all that much of a classic. It's good, but it's not that good. B+. Accepted Eclectic, Aesop. Finally, we get to talk about one of my all-time favorite hip-hop artists on this channel. Yeah, let's go! Even some of the biggest hip-hop fans are unaware of Aesop. Let me just tell you, Aesop's first 2 solo albums, All Balls Don't Bounce and A Book of Human Language, are definitely top-tier hip-hop classics. This was his follow-up to those masterclass albums. Aesop is generally known for his jazzy beats and his sophisticated vocabulary, probably one of the most sophisticated vocabularies in all of hip-hop. With this album, it feels like he's taking a step back in both. This is one of his least jazzy and probably one of his lyrically less sophisticated works. But this album is more on the funny and catchy side than anything. With A Book of Human Knowledge and All Balls Don't Bounce, you find yourself coming back to songs constantly because you want to read more into it. You want to get more into those beats. But as I said, this one just plays it a lot more safe. My favorite track is the one where he talks about how people kind of suck at taking drugs, and he gives specific directions to make sure that you don't have a bad time on whatever drug you want to take. And as a Weenie Hut Jr. individual myself who has only had bad experiences with most drugs, I happen to relate. Because I followed those instructions when I did it. I was always in a bad state of mind because I was scared to do them. It's a tiny bit of a misstep from the previous 2 albums, but not too big of one. I am gonna go ahead and give this a B+. Clouded, self-titled. Oh, wait, no, hold on. Clouded! I hate that stylization. Whoever came up with that, please fix it. This often highly regarded hip-hop compilation is a collection of the first few releases released by this project. And when I say avant-garde, this is avant-garde. Expect lots and lots of sound experimentations and interesting little musical ideas that are just left at ideas and stopped way too soon. I don't usually mind avant-garde, but it has to have a structure, a sense of purpose to it. And I know that some of you art snobs out there are all like, art doesn't have to have a purpose. It can reflect the nihilistic tendencies of the rest of the world. It's like, fuck, but it doesn't bring me any fulfillment. And I need to send those dopamine things spiraling in my brain so that way I can actually feel good about what I'm listening to instead of just being like, okay, well that was interesting. Off to the next less interesting idea. And here's something that I like to do when I do these projects is I like to be able to take individual tracks and songs that I enjoy off of a particular album and put them in a playlist where I can listen to that later. Can't do that here because each one of these tracks is just one of the sides off of their first 10-inch releases. So if you want to re-listen to a particularly musically interesting idea, you have to go through each one of the tracks because you're not going to know the name of it because there is no name to it. Whoever sequenced this thing, please fix it because some of us just want to listen to individual moments off of this thing without having to slog through the rest of it. I can understand why some people enjoy it, some people like kind of that purposeless experimentation type of stuff, but for me there has to be a rhyme and reason to it. This is just Metal Machine music, but not as bad. C+. Disposable Arts, Masta Ace. This was the triumphant return of Masta Ace, a veteran hip-hop legend from the late 80s and early 90s. He released a few flops and wanted to prove that he still has some greatness in him, and he gave us this. Now there's some depth behind that, because this is a concept album that tells a story. It's about a young man who gets locked up in prison after committing a crime, gets out of prison, and decides that he doesn't want to go back to prison, tries to keep himself out of crime, and ends up getting sucked back into the world of crime anyways. Insert tons of comments about the legal justice system and how it needs to be completely reformed, but that's a topic for a different video. And what results is actually some of the funniest fucking shit that I've heard for the year 2001. The skits on this thing. Usually I groan when I see that there is skits in between, and I'm just all like, you know what? These are fucking hilarious, because the songs themselves are also fucking hilarious. There's some raunchy-ass sex songs on here, tons of tracks about the legal justice system that they poke so many jokes at it. And I actually ended up revisiting this because of how funny it was, even if this didn't end up in my S tier. Highly recommend this thing if you need a good laugh, and it's not the most original hip-hop album out there, but its sense of humor is what keeps it afloat and up into the A tier. A-. Missy. So addictive. Missy Elliott. Dude, Missy doesn't have a single bad album in her bloodstream, I swear. She released Super Duper Fly in 1996, and she has just been consistently good ever since. And this album is no exception. We have some production done by Timbaland on here, which definitely complements Missy's great flow. Get Your Freak On is one of the best hip-hop songs of the early 2000s. And this thing is just so consistently good. It's up there with some of her finest releases. But one more thing I want to talk about is that final track. Because after an entire album where she does nothing but rap, she starts to sing. And we don't talk about Missy Elliott as a vocalist. Why? We should be. That woman's got some fucking pipes on her. Missy, I'm sure you're not watching this, but in the rare case that you are, please give us that vocal album. Or some Missy Elliott fan in the comments tell me that there is a Missy Elliott vocal album out there and I'm just ignorant. This is just a solid album. A. The Blueprint, Jay-Z. Yes, all of the yes. So much yes that it sounds like a bad 2001 Herbal Essences commercial. In the early 2000s, Jay-Z was in some trouble. He was facing a legal trial that he thought he was likely to lose, and so he decided to go into the studio and record what was going to be his swan song. If he was gonna go out, he was gonna go out with a fucking bang. How much of the bang did he go out with? Pretty fucking loud if I own it on vinyl. By the way, this thing was a pain in the ass to get a hold of. It was not cheap because it went out of print right around the time that I wanted to start seeking it out. Every single song on here just slaps. It's got some of the best hip-hop production I've ever heard. And guess who's to thank for that? This guy, Kanye West. This was his first notable release. But guess what? Not a word out of his mouth. Thank fucking God, because Kanye is best when he is a producer. Controversial opinion, this is his best work. Not My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy or any of his solo material, this thing. It has so many retro and soul samples in here. It just proved that the sample was not dead and it could be reinvigorated with the new software that was available. New software available and, of course, production processes that were founded by Mr. West. Another thing I really like about this album is its lack of skits. By the time we reached the 2000s, so many hip-hop albums had unnecessary skits that every time you bumped into them, you're just like, God fucking damn it, no, get to the next song. I say this after having praised Masta Ace, but the thing is that the skits have to serve a purpose. But nothing on here for skits. Everything just one song into the next, and I love it. Another notable thing is its lack of guest appearances, with the exception of Eminem. And if you're gonna choose a guest appearance, that's a good one to go with. Now luckily, Jay got acquitted for his charges. and he gave us one of the best hip-hop albums ever created. I mean, I own it on vinyl. You know what grade I'm gonna give it. Just look at the screen, S tier. But, as great as The Blueprint is, it is not my favorite hip-hop album of 2001. The Best Part by J Live. God, this thing is so underlooked. It's not even funny. So if I own The Blueprint on vinyl and I like this one more, then of course I own this one on vinyl. What? What? Oh, this is what most of you are going to take interest in, right? Okay, so I get that some of you are going to be like, but why does it say 1999 on there? I thought this was a 2001 video. Why would you review an album from 1999? You bitched about how Wilco released Yankee Hotel Foxtrot in 2001, and then how everyone else calls it a 2002 release. Okay, hold on. Let me get to the point, alright? I can explain why there's a 1999 logo on there, and I'll explain my reasoning. So basically, this album started production in 1996. J Live was a struggling musician at the time. He finished the album in 1998, wanted it released by 1999, but no music label would touch it because it was too complex and layered for what would probably sell the mainstream audiences. So Jay decided to take it upon himself to push out some bootleg releases. He himself doesn't even consider it to be the official release, but some vinyl copies were floating around in 1999 and 2000, as well as the album having already been leaked online. Finally, it got picked up by a major label in 2001 and finally spat out. When it comes to something like Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, that's an official album release for the year 2001, as per the way the band decided to put it out there. So there's your explanation. Can we at least calm down in the comments before we start debating about what album qualifies for what year depending on how it was released? Because this thing is a fucking masterclass album. I discovered it listed on several best of the year lists, and I was just like, wait, what in the world is this? I mean, at least most of the other albums I had heard of. But that's because Jay wrote some really ahead of its time stuff for 2001, let alone 1999. Hell, you listen to it today, there's not a whole lot that sounds like it. Yeah, some of the production definitely does show its age. That's inevitable with any genre, really. But Jay asks the question, what role can an MC play in 21st century hip-hop where the MC seems to be less and less important? And the answer is, a fucking legend. His flow, his sense of humor, his political consciousness, all of it ties together to give you something that you don't hear anywhere else. J Live is one of the most underappreciated hip-hop artists out there, him and Aesop alone both. I highly recommend checking this album out. Easy S tier. And that about does it for this episode. Join me next time when I get to piss off a bunch of punk fans. See ya later.